Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your hosts.
Welcome to the Do Good X podcast. My name is Stephen Lewis, and I'm a catalyst for positive change in communities and businesses. For over 2 decades, I've inspired leaders and entrepreneurs to live and work on purpose with intention, faith, and a commitment to their well-being. And I'm joined here today by my co-host, Kimberly. Hey, Kimberly.
Hey, Stephen. How are you doing today?
It's good. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, good to see you as well. My name is Kimberly Danielle, and I am a communication strategist, a coach, and community builder who comes from generations of faith-driven leaders and entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. Today, and in the next few episodes, we are going to focus on an important topic. Well, all the topics we have been focusing on are important, but this is a topic that we all need in our businesses, which is around money. But specifically, we're going to look at raising capital and growing your business through sales over the next several episodes. Today, though, in particular, we want to start by looking at the question of, should you grow your business through sales or raise investment capital? Which one is it? It's really not a one size fits all answer. And in many cases, it's not either or, but understanding the trade-offs can make you feel more confident and make smarter moves for your particular business. So first off, for those of you who might be earlier on, who don't really have a good understanding of sales and capital, Stephen, could you just bring us back to the basics so that before we even get into more of the conversation, people understand what it is that we're talking about?
Sure. So both sales and raising capital ultimately is about exchange, and it's what you're exchanging for money in order to grow your business, to expand your business, to do some capital improvement within your actual business. But it's all basically boils down to exchange. So when you're selling, it really is about the exchange of a product or service for money in return for those goods, services. And if it's about raising capital, you are exchanging ownership or maybe even debt in order to raise the capital that you need for the purposes of building out a new division of your work, to expand your supply chain, to think about the way in which you grow distribution, how you be able to bring on other staff and that type of thing. And the real question, I think, is about the time horizon, about when you actually need the money to do what it is that you want to do, and the acceleration by which you're trying to pace in the development of your actual business. So a lot of people think in entrepreneurial endeavor that, you have to raise capital. And I think, in this modern era, particularly, the post.com, and then you see this flurry of technologies in the early 2000s. A lot of individuals have thought about, all right, how do I actually build a business that I can quickly then move up to like series A, B, and C rounds of funding that an actual venture capitalist or some other type of entity will actually give me resources or money in exchange for some equity ownership into my business, or maybe there's some payable note or loan that I can actually get in order to build my business. But the traditional way, which a lot of people have been building their business through the years, particularly when you think about small business association, has really been about this kind of old way of really trying to build a product or a service that people then exchange money for. So when you think about our restaurants, or you think about different products and services that we purchases, in many ways, particularly in kind of in smaller geographical kinds of places and locations, it's always been about, I'm going to sell to the customer. In exchange, the customer is going to give me, the resources that I have. But as those organizations become bigger, they may have to think about other ways that they're too big to go, door to door. They're too big to actually, just work in their one city. Now you have businesses that are more sophisticated and they're working interstate or they're working globally. The internet has made our world much smaller. And so you have to think about other ways in which you're actually trying to sell. So those are the two kind of distinctions, really about it's an exchange for either money for your product and services or goods or services sold, or it's an exchange for money for equity or some debt in your company for the purposes of building and growing your actual business.
Yeah, that's good. When you were talking, I was just thinking back to all of the conversations we had in season 1 around venture capital, and we never really got into sales. And sales is so important. And we here at Do Get X, from one of our advisors and in conversations with other folks, it's not really something that's talked about as often as raising money via capital and venture capital. So this is an important conversation. And when I think about kind of the pros and cons of each, I mean, they both have two sides of a coin. They're really pros and cons either way you go. When we are looking at sales first, that really does give you some control. It might give you some challenge too, if you're not clear about how to directly and most effectively meet your customers. But you're not giving equity. You're not giving up equity or answering to outside investors, which may impact or shift, some of your business in ways that you may not necessarily want to, but you have to in order to receive those funds. But if you go the sales route, you also have to build a particular muscle. This may be a muscle you have to build in either scenario, but especially around sales. It's really an art. You have to be articulate in the problem that you're solving or the need that you're addressing for your customer in your particular solution. You have to connect with your customer more intentionally than, and maybe not necessarily in ways you have to with an investor. And so this requires some level of relationship building with your customer base that really compels them to buy your product or service, to stay loyal, to be a part of your initial tribe or your continuing tribe that will, continue to advocate for what it is that you're providing, continue to purchase what it is that you're providing, and hopefully to grow your customer base by word of mouth or in other ways. And you have to build that trust with your customers and deliver the value that you said that you're going to do. Ultimately, is about storytelling. And I'm excited because a later conversation that we're going to have in the series of episodes, we will get to the storytelling as it relates to sales, but you have to tell a well-crafted story. So there's a benefit when we're talking about sales here in Atlanta. The CEO of the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, also called RICE, Jay Bailey, he has spoken to a previous cohort of an accelerator for Do Get X. And one of the things that he mentioned was the best way to get money is to not need money. And what he meant by that is go out and get your own money so that you're not relying on these investors. So that means that you are doing the sales. You are selling yourself well. You're selling your product and your service, and you're getting that money. You're generating that money without having to rely on other outside resources. However, you have to keep in mind that you need a level of resiliency, because not everybody's going to say yes. Just like going out and finding, raising capital, you may not hear a lot of yeses initially with investors. You also have to build that muscle when it comes to sales as well. And if your business is growing fast, sales might not keep up with the money that you need in order to keep up with the amount of growth that you have. Sure. And so if you're scaling and you need to hire more employees, or you need to scale your production, depending on what your product is, you might not be able to meet that need just through sales. So that might be a scenario where you do need to look at some other forms of money, which may include some form of capital. And if you're able to secure investment capital, it can help you move faster. You can hire a team. You might be able to build tech if that's a part of your product or service. You might be able to reach new markets in ways that you would not be able to just through selling alone. But again, it comes with some pressure. It may come with some challenge, especially if you are an underrepresented founder. But there's definitely money out there and available and present. But you have to be mindful, again, that with an investor, the alignment of goals is there, the alignment of values is there, especially if you're focusing on social impact, long-term impact, and not just trying to get money. So, you just keep those things in mind. And again, we have had some conversations last season that can be helpful with that, with Rachel Wilson, and with Shruti Shah and others in the investment field, where their insight can be very helpful and also help you to see that there's not just one form of capital as well. So people tend to go to VC, but there's other forms of getting money too. So just some things to keep in mind, whether you go down the sales route, whether you go down the capital route, whether you go down both paths. They're just some things that you should keep in mind.
Yeah, I think those are all good, Kimberly. And I think, again, it really is about your time horizon. What are you trying to accomplish? And it also depends on the way you want to build your business. And I think those two things are really important as you try to determine. So one of the questions is, how do you know what's right for your business? If you're still trying to prove your idea, sales can validate it and build early momentum. A lot of us weren't taught to sell in school, in business school, and entrepreneur programs, even in accelerator programs. But the way to make meaningful work sustainable is through selling. Ultimately, your customer, whether it's B2B or it's B2C, you have to be able to sell yourself. Your products and services have to be able to sell. In other words, that demonstrates whether or not you actually have something that meets a real need within the marketplace. I hear people all the time say, I want to be able to make money in my sleep. And to be able to do that, you have to be able to create a product and a service and a story around that people will continue to be seeking and demanding your product or service, even when you may not be in front of their face. They can go to your website and they want to actually purchase that thing. So in doing so, what you're doing, you're inviting customers into a solution that they may need while also, sustaining and potentially growing your business. But your customers will help you grow the very thing that you say that you actually want to build or try to solve with your actual solution. So if you have more demand than you can handle, well, maybe you're ready to scale. And capital can help you meet it. Because sometimes, as you think about, you're getting X amount of customers per month. Sometimes when you have a big influx of demand, then you can't sell enough. And so you actually need more capital in order to get you up to speed. That would normally take you maybe 3 to 6 months and actually to kind of raise that money by just selling to your customers. And so capital is a way to kind of speed up the process and build infrastructure or to bring in partners that you otherwise wouldn't have in order to accelerate and scale your actual business. But you have to also consider that at any stage, if you gain traction through sales, you can walk into an investor conversation with more confidence. You can be in a position where you can feel yourself, which is another way of saying, I got something I'm bringing to the table as well. And it's not just what you're negotiating with me, but it's a mutual exchange of saying, I'm bringing something to the table. And, your capital is not the only, is not the only option at this time. And that just gives you more negotiating room when you come to the table with a track record of being able to sell and having the backing of customers behind your product or service. So in any case, if you consider a hybrid model like small grants that that can give you funding without giving up your equity, sometimes it's a payable note. Another case is a bank loan. You can figure out what might work best for you so you don't have to actually give up ownership within your business. There are many different options between just selling to your customer to actually raising capital from an investor in terms of like what you can actually do to kind of accelerate your efforts. Again, Kimberly mentioned that, season 1, Rachel Wilson addressed many of these questions about capital and mentioned other financial options. So again, that would be a good episode to return to actually dig a little deeper in some of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's up to you which path that you feel is best for your business, given what Stephen mentioned about the stage and what your needs are. These are just options to consider.
That's right.
But I would say, again, and I think you said it as well, Stephen, in any path you take, the skills that you have in selling, you should have those regardless of whatever path that you choose, because you have to tell your story. You have to tell the story of your product or service. You have to connect with your customer intentionally if you're looking at creating a long-term business that is sustainable. And so I hope that you take this seriously, that you stick with us over the next few episodes to really learn which path might be best for you and where you might explore. Because if you want to do good, you need to connect with your customer. If you want to do good, you need to compel folks to invest, purchase your product or service. You need to deliver that value, and you need to continue to tell that story, especially if you're wanting to grow over time. So I hope that this episode has given you something to consider for your way and path forward.
Yeah, and if you're thinking through questions like we've mentioned today, realize this: you do not have to do it alone. At Do Good X, we support purpose-driven entrepreneurs who are building businesses to make a difference. And whether you're looking to grow through sales, raise capital, or just figure out your next step, we've got resources and a community and opportunities to help you build with clarity. So visit dogoodx.org to learn more, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.